Saggie, really many thanks for standing in there. I think we're happy for you to be joining us, and I know you've been traveling, so thank you. And we also have Ken Malcolmson, who is the Chief Security Advisor at Microsoft. So welcome, Ken, to our SOC Masterclass. And also thanks to you. I know you've had some, personal family matters to deal with, so we really appreciate you spending the time with us today. So let's get going with this session. So the session is we titled it "Driving the Next Generation of Cloud Security Transformation," and there's quite a few topics that we have, and we had some discussions prior to this to today. Things like what are the challenges in bringing around security transformation? What are the differences between that on-prem, cloud-based, and cloud-native? And what are the priorities that security professionals need to pay attention to when securing multi-cloud environments? And I would say that part of why we wanted Ken here is because he has such enormous experience working with Microsoft in this space. I'm kind of bringing him together with Saggie, who has worked on some of the most complex cloud transformation projects that are out there. And I think the idea of this session is really to have a discussion, open form. There's no one has any scripts, and so let's maybe dive in with the first topic, which I think is important, which is why cloud native versus on-premise or cloud-based. Why are we even having this discussion? Ken, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. So hi everyone, good to meet you. I'm Ken Malcolmson. I'm based up near the Redmond campus in Washington State. And why cloud? Well, that's a big old question. To be honest, the thing that's driving the transformation in cloud security is we are adapting to what the businesses are doing. So over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a steady move to the cloud. As organizations understand they can take advantage of the speed and scalability of the cloud, they're starting to move more and more of the operations, the data applications into that cloud space, which is great. I mean, it's a real way of changing your operational model. But from a security perspective, we then think about what does that mean in terms of protecting our assets. As more and more of our data, our applications move to the cloud, it makes increasingly little sense to backhaul everything onto an on-prem solution, do all the analysis work on there to understand what's happening, and then reach back into the cloud again to make changes. So we started to see a fairly significant need for cloud-based tools to help us in that world. And that was extremely true for us at Microsoft. As you can imagine, we have a big cloud footprint. We used to rely on a legacy SIEM on-prem, and the kind of the usual 60, 70, 80, 100 tools that organizations use to secure that environment. And we got to a point where we had to begin using the cloud to secure Microsoft and by extension our customers. So I think the driving concept here is the thing that we call data gravity. So your data and your applications have a gravitational pull on your resources, and if they're moving to the cloud and you're still stuck in an on-prem solution, there's a tension there between how those two models operate. So we began working on building cloud security into our products and services, and that's everything from the modern workplace solutions, Defend for Endpoint, Defend for Identity, and so on. But more particularly our cloud SIEM solution, so Microsoft Sentinel, which was our built, born in the cloud SIEM. And over the last 4 years, we have completely moved from our on-prem SIEM environment to in the cloud. And it's given us tremendous ability to drive efficiency into our businesses. And that's kind of why we think the cloud is becoming increasingly important from a security perspective.
I really like what you said, Ken, about having those in the on-prem, having those millions of tools that you need to use in order to protect your environment. And I think that what we see today, and especially with Microsoft, is the way that created this amazing ecosystem. So whatever you use, you have this tool that already ready there, and just in a click of a button, you can enable it and start protecting your environment. So it's starting with the users and the endpoint, as you said, with the E5 stack. So you can see the Defender for Identity, the MCAS, and everything. Everything is forged together. And on the other side, when you have the Defender for Cloud and you have the Sentinel that you centralize everything, it really gives you an edge. And if you see in another environment or another industry, the best companies are those who create a very efficient ecosystem. And I think that this is what we have in the cloud, and especially in Azure and Microsoft. So this is, I think, that one of the biggest advantage. And what we really like with Sentinel, for example, is when you go out there and if you look in the past, so you want to do a POC, for example, for a SIEM platform. So you have to provision VMs, and you need to get license and do the sizing and get the people that do a lot of work with database and everything. And today, click of a button and you can start testing Sentinel. And this is what really the power and the amazing thing that cloud provides.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the other thing that's driving our move to the cloud as Microsoft is, I know people keep saying that threats are getting more sophisticated, more advanced, which may or may not be true. I mean, the tools and techniques that attackers are using are not evolving that quickly. The combinations of things you see them doing are interesting, and their operational efficiency is definitely getting better. And one thing that's become clear is we have to be able to identify bad things happening in our environment really, really quickly and effectively. And we find that using the cloud to do that analysis work, because we look at signal from our on-prem environment, and we can reflect that signal into the cloud and say, look at what's going up here. And that gives us much more visibility than we ever had before in a purely on-prem world. So I think that a velocity is driving some change as well.
Interesting. I actually, just to talking about the threats and challenges, let's do a quick poll. I've got a few we've got a few questions here. Let's just launch it and see what people think. So I'll take you through and we can discuss it once some of the results come in. So aside from data breaches, what are the biggest cloud security challenges facing organizations? There's let's please everybody please add your thoughts here. There's no right or wrong, but we'd like to hear what you think is the biggest challenges. The second question, just I want to get people's thoughts around the Gartner 2022 cybersecurity predictions on the spend in public cloud. What do you think is the spend? I put in a few crazy numbers here. Let's see what people think. And the third question is, what do you think is the biggest threat to businesses in 2022? What are the big threats? And interested to know people are thinking here. We've got we have a few more people. Please read through and then submit your responses. Interested to get your feedback. And Ken and Saggie, I'm not sure if you can actually see. Can you see the questions up on screen?
I can see the questions, but I can't vote.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, I have to speak to Zoom about that. Okay, let's give it a couple more minutes. I want to give everybody an opportunity, if you'd like to do that, and that we can see what it's a very interesting spread. I'm not going to spoil it. I'd like Ken to give his view on how this is coming up. Okay, a few more seconds. I can see people are still submitting. When we reach I don't know, we'll reach another 5 or 10 more people. Let's move on. I think we're getting it somewhat statistically significant. Okay, last chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, One. Okay. Okay. So let's share the results.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this this first question? The biggest cloud security challenge. What's your? Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. What's your view on?
Yeah,
on this?
This is how I felt, to be honest. I looked at the set of issues you had there and I thought, well, these could all apply. These are all issues that organizations are going to face moving into the cloud. And you have a very even split here, which makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I run across in my conversations with organizations are definitely the top two: cloud security expertise and cloud migration issues. And in cloud migration, I'm going to include misconfigurations. As you move into the cloud, it's relatively straightforward to secure your environment, but you have to know what you're doing. So that combination of expertise and migration to the cloud is potentially dangerous. So we do a lot of work with customers on helping them understand what recommended best practices look like in Azure, and what they should be thinking about when they're having that transformation conversation.
Cool. Saggie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So when you present it, I was thinking about adding another answer. All the everything is applicable. And
yeah,
I agree with Ken, and I think that I often see, I also as an MCT, and I'm having doing some workshops and things like that. I think that I spoke with it in the past. I think that what happened in the cloud is that they took all the the traditional IT, the database admin, the network admin, the system admin, they put it in a bowl, and it's like mix it, because now if you create a VM, you need to understand network, and you need to understand storage, and if you have I don't know a web application, now you need to understand about a little bit about firewalls and WAF and things like that. So this is where a lot of traditional people that came, and they know they are very good storage guys and they are very good network guys, and now they need to they lost the layer, the physical layer, and now they need to combine their skill with other skills. So this is where we see a lot of struggles. And of course, the misconfiguration. So as we said, from one side, the amazing capability of the cloud on click of a button and everything is running. Mm-hmm. So this is also the downside, because it's very, very easy to start things and you don't really understand what they are doing, but it's easy to enable them. So this is where we see a lot of misconfiguration. And this is connected to what Ken said. The attackers are not, it's not that they are becoming well sophisticated and improving themselves, is that the variety and the vast of features and things that you can enable in the cloud increase the amount of errors and mistakes that we are doing. And this is where we see a lot of increase in the attacks.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to the next one. I mean, I'm actually Saggie. Do you know what Gartner actually predicted? Do you know the answer to this?
So I was sure it was more. No.
More than all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Ken, do you know the actual answer, at least from the published report, or do you want to guess?
I don't know, but as a cloud service provider, I hope it's the top one.
Well, okay, so it's interesting. Actually, it's $482 billion. That's the 2022 predicted forecast, and I did add a caveat, but it's SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS, right? It's a really broad range, but it's a like predictions, they're only as good as when we actually finish 2022. So we'll have to come back at the end of the year and see how that was. But the volume of investment is mind-boggling, and I'll just say, I'm sure Saggie will talk more about this as we dive into more details. But as a security vendor that is very much catering to cloud transformation, security elements, this is a big part of how we spend our days and nights worrying about. Let's just look at the final one. Saggie, any thoughts on this? The spread between here? Again, there's no one.
I think that it's more. I think that the answer more is what is more popular. what we hear more. It's more, today everyone spoke about ransomware and so on, but I think that other than nation state, that I think it should be one of the laws. The rest of the things, I think they should be high and should be even, because we see everything, and ransomware also somewhere, get inside identity fraud and attack on data of infrastructure. So, but yeah, I understand why everyone chose ransomware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, ransomware is a conversation that comes up in discussions all the time that I have with customers, and it makes sense because the way ransomware operates these days, it's not really a kind of spray and pray attack anymore. We're relying people to click on multiple bad things. It relies on compromising our organization and then effectively having a big bang event where you ransomware everything at once. It's really high profile, and that ends up on the front pages of the Wall Street Journal. And that's why it's a big business concern. But one thing I found interesting was if you look at the amount of the dollar value of cybercrime through things like business email compromise, that's extremely high, even compared to ransomware. And it's something that's just kind of floating under the radar for a lot of folks. But again, the way to think about all these things is, in my old grey-haired state, the things that are part of these attacks are not that new. There's always an initial access phase, usually an identity compromise. There's always lateral movement around the network, and there's elevation of privilege, trying to get admin credentials, and then a bad thing happening to data. And data can be just data, or it can be intellectual property or financial data. You don't steal, if you're a bank robber, you don't back the truck up to the bank anymore and load the money in. You steal the ones and zeros from the online banking system. But also things like industrial control systems. Attacks on those, there's still attacks on data. So the way we think of protecting initial access, lateral movement, elevation of privilege, and access to data is the same thing for all of these attack types. So if we do good work in defending against the big bad, which is ransomware these days, we also do really good work in helping ourselves to defend against these other types of attack as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. Let's move on. I wanted to address an equally important, it's like the what and the why. But Saggie, maybe you could talk a little bit about organizations that you've worked with that have been struggling or have made decisions to move from a legacy security infrastructure and then kind of plan out a cloud native cyber defense. What are the real things that you end up discussing with customers and spend your time thinking very carefully about?
So I think that it's really connected to the things that we saw in the poll that you just made. So the biggest challenge that we see is that those cloud expertise. When you go to big enterprise companies, they're afraid of the cloud, and they're afraid of the cloud because they don't know him well. They have their infrastructures guy. They invested a lot of money in the data centers, and they are doing it well. And going to the cloud bring a lot of concerns, and not only security concerns, because we also have the cost concerns. So when everything that we're doing in the cloud, as we know, with and with the model of pay-as-you-go and everything, it's connecting to the cost. So this delicate connection between how we can really create an equal environment in terms of features in the cloud, but also controlling the costs, because it's easy to come and just enable everything and deploy everything, but then you end up with a very high cost, which we probably won't get the approval to spend. And the other side is really showing and guiding the people in the company around the benefits and the features in the cloud, and it's really building the confidence around the cloud and what they can do, what they can achieve, and it's really changing the way you think. It's no longer you buy a VM, you buy a license, and you deal with it. It's completely different, and this is, I think, where we see most of our conversation in the start begin. And as we build confidence and they are starting to understand and see the benefit of going to the cloud, this is where we can really start and working with them. And I think, Ken, you will agree with me that a lot of the things and start with really the confidence of what the cloud can give you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that understanding what capabilities you have is really important. But one of the other parts of the conversations I have with customers when they're thinking about moving to the cloud is alignment. Most organizations spend a lot of time building up an organization and understanding how the business fits into the silos, how the networking supports that, how the storage operates, and so on. And then it's the cloud. You can just turn things on. No, you have to think about these things. And we always recommend you thinking as far as possible, aligning your cloud deployment with your existing organizational structures. And ideally, the folks who are responsible for things in the cloud need to be the same folks who are responsible for those things on-prem. Because the big goal with cloud from a security perspective is simplicity, trying to avoid overcomplicating things. I mean, I went through years of helping customers build out on-prem AD infrastructures, and everyone starts with a nice clean diagram, and immediately it's overly complicated, and we have group policies and OUs, and it's terrible. We don't want to do that in the cloud. We want to use the cloud as an ability to rethink how we're aligning our resources to our business. But yeah, there's a whole conversation we could have around what that really means. The other thing I always talk with customers about is it doesn't mean that their existing skills and resources are now redundant. You can't throw away your networking team. That's still really important. You can't throw away your on-prem identity team. They're still really important. It's going to be a team sport. It's not a bunch of new stuff in the cloud which beats everything else. No, we all have to work together to do what security should be doing, which is make the business more effective.
Right. Yeah, and I think that what the cloud really gives is it's reducing the noise. Because if you see a lot of on-prem guys, a lot of time of their work is maintaining the servers, the hardware, maintaining server updates, things like that. And what I really like in the cloud is that it's bringing a lot of quiet around this area, because you no longer care about those hotfix or those upgrades, or if the storage is going to fill up and I need now another disk. So it really gives them the ability to focus on what's important, and what's important is the content and the policy and the monitoring, and this is what I really like in the cloud. And as you said, it's not that we are going to throw everyone away. No, we still need them, but we are going to skill them and get them focused on what is matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the things that I constantly hear is that people are complaining that there are just too many tools. So let me flip that, and maybe Ken, let me ask you, how do you see the next, let's call it the next generation, because there's always new tools coming on, but how do you see the next generation of cloud security tools evolving?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big conversation with customers. I mean, this has been a problem for 20 years now, the proliferation of security tools. Some very good vendors build really good tools which do things extremely well. And we developed this concept of best of breed. So I want the best of breed identity control system. I want the best of breed detection for this type of threat. I want the best of breed networking security tool, which is fine until you end up in the situation we are in today, where most large organizations have somewhere between 50 and 100 different security tools, all of which are best of breed in their special particular area. But they're relying on you as an end user of these things to stitch them all together to give you the end-to-end protection that you actually need, which is not an easy thing to do. Every time we look at integrating products from different vendors and different parts of the industry, we are going to end up with gaps. It's just the way these things work out. And unfortunately, the solution for filling those gaps today is people. You need people to do the work, to do that manual correlation between different tools, to do the analysis of what's actually happening. And people are A, expensive, B, not hard and not easy to find, and C, not as fast as they need to be to combat some of these fast-moving threats. I think it's interesting. We mentioned Gartner on the poll before. Gartner have the magic quadrants, which talk about this is the best of breed for each of these different areas. And Microsoft, talking about us particularly, we've been working really hard over the last few years to move our products into those top right quadrants, because that's how our customers think about choosing the right tools. And in the Gartner predictions note that Howard mentioned earlier on, one thing they talked about in there was it's now time to think about moving to a suite approach, an integrated suite, because the power and the speed of the cloud can give you all of the best of breed features you need, but integrated together. And that integration piece is extremely important. That's where the value of the cloud comes in. And my usual example there is how we think about ransomware. As we talked about before, ransomware is now an attack where someone compromises your environment and then moves far and wide and then executes a big bang attack to ransom everything at the same time. And the way I think about that is a lot of those steps that the attackers take to get from initial access through to access to data are going to generate alerts in your logs, but you're not necessarily going to see that pattern correlated together. I have a detection of a commodity banking Trojan infection on 1 or 2 machines. And I automatically remediate those through my EDR solution. Great, is that the end of that threat? Not necessarily. You have to understand what else is happening around that event at the same time. Are we seeing security logs being cleared? Are we seeing antivirus being turned off? Are we seeing the initial phases of what looks like a large ransomware attack? And until then, we rely on humans to do that correlation work, look across all the screens and say, oh, this looks quite bad. We can now do that using cloud tools at scale to hopefully make your analysts' lives better and more efficient. And I think that when we think about moving from the 60 to 100 tools down to a core set of tools that's supported by an integrated cloud solution, hopefully we're making an improvement in your security posture, as well as improving the lives of your valuable and expensive people.
And I think that just added to what you said regarding Gartner. So I think it was last year that they come and say that the traditional SIEM is not enough. So today we want to go with something what we called the security analytic platform. And the security analytic platform provide this custom detection. It provide a integration with the MITRE attack and provide a lot of customization. And I think that this is where, for example, Sentinel did a great job. So with Sentinel, we have today, we have the traditional SIEM, we have the SOAR, we have the threat analytic, we have the threat hunting solution, we have the UEBA, and together with the E5 stack and the Defender for the cloud, this is where they're trying to provide a single pane of glass to all those tools to provide you from one side, reduce the dashboards that you need to jump from one to another one, and keep expanding it. So in overall, if you think about, you are going to manage Defender for cloud and Defender for Office 365, and you have the SIEM on top of it that give you this single pane of glass. And I think that this is exactly, as you said, what Microsoft and others are trying to do, because they understand that people don't want to manage 50 platforms, and they don't want to manage to jump between dashboard to dashboard to dashboard. They want to have this centralized, because it's the risk is increasing, the number of incidents we are seeing is increasing, and we just cannot scale in terms of people with the amount of alerts and incidents that we see. So we need those tools to help us and really reduce the amount of incident we see, and really focus on the true positive and not the false positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but a big part of that, I think, is how, I'm going to talk about Microsoft again specifically, how we think about our tools in the world going forward. We are absolutely committed to supporting our customers in a multi-cloud environment. I know we used to talk about you can get security from Microsoft for Microsoft. Now it's great security from Microsoft for wherever you need to be, whichever tools, whichever cloud services you want to use. I always say two things in my security conversations. One, there's no such thing as a solution that's 100% effective 100% of the time. So we think it's an old-fashioned defense in depth conversation. You have to have backup solutions. And the second thing is, no one, not even Microsoft, is 100% Microsoft. We have some third-party tooling as well. So we want to make sure, and we have extensive Linux deployments and Macs in our environment. So we have to think about how can we make your deployments more secure, whatever you want to use. And that's the approach we're taking. We are like other vendors in the security space. We are always trying to get to this mythical single pane of glass. I think it's going to take us time to get there, but certainly there seems to be a consensus across the industry that reducing the number of panes is a good thing. Getting it down to a manageable, maybe 3. That's quite good, and we'll have this goal of getting to a single solution for all of your security requirements, but that's definitely still a little bit away for just now.
Yeah, maybe we can just actually go in even a little bit more detail there. And I wanted to ask Saggie maybe more of an operational question. So, this idea of the visibility, giving enterprises quick access to the visibility of their cloud infrastructure and their processes, and and again, I'm talking about security operations. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been developing, maybe in terms of the use cases and the various models that you help customers to basically prepare and then customize for future threats?
Yeah. So I think that one of the things that really help our customers with this, trying to centralize and have overall picture on what is going on is our CDC, right? I mean, our CDC really give the.
You want to just say what the CDC stands for?
Yeah, so this is the CyberProof Defense Center. For those who doesn't know our platform, this is the platform that CyberProof use in order to collaborate and provide our customers this picture of what's going on in the status. It's more like a chat ops, so we can really collaborate and work together. Because we don't believe in those black box that we are the MSSP, we'll send you emails. No, we don't know where this. We have chat ops, we collaborate. You can see everything. There's a lot of visibility, and one of the things that we do have there is a lot of dashboards, and we have this, for example, the Mitre integration. So the customer can come and see its coverage in terms of Mitre and how we are building our use cases around the risk that we see. So together with the Trent intelligence team, so they feed and they investigate and they search on the internet for new threats, and they are working together with our use case factory that's building those use cases on top of those threats and providing the customer this picture of what is the status right now and what use cases he has at which MITRE taxes and technique it's covered. And this is how we really work with the customer in order to try to build him the coverage and for him to understand what is current state. And not only on Azure, we, as Ken said, together with Microsoft, and other third party, we are able to monitor the on-prem, the cloud, and any cloud provider, any other SaaS solution, and centralize it, whether it's in Sentinel or in the CDC. And I think that the use case factory, Ken, you're aware of our use case factory?
Yes.
Yeah, so together with our use case factory, we have the team that working with the customer, understanding the risk, always evaluate his coverage and his status, and working together with him to build more and more and more content. And one of the things that I really personally like is that it's not that we are, putting the content inside and leaving it there. So it's always, some threats are no longer valid or no longer, are not used. So it's also a matter of reducing the amount of detection rules and making sure that you have the detection rules that you want to maintain and carry on with you. So this is a lot of the work that we are doing together with the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Excuse me. And I think that's where the value of an organization like CyberProof comes in. When I work with customers, they want to understand from Microsoft what Microsoft does, how we think about these use cases. And to be honest, that's not that useful. If you're a manufacturing customer in Idaho, you don't really care how Microsoft operates our identity platform, because we do really, really bizarre things in our identity platform. But our partners like CyberProof, who work daily with customers and understand how they can bring their expertise to real world examples of how to do business. That's extremely valuable. So big fan of Use Case Factory for sure. It's really good. Excuse me.
It's about, you often, we have sometimes we engage with customers and, they have like, we want this, we want this X number of use cases. So, and it's about, education to try to explain. It's not about the number of use cases that you have, because, I can deploy 100, but how it's related to your business risks. And I think this is where the core value, and I think that also Microsoft trying to do it with the secure score and tools like that in order to try to see and the cloud posture to try and see how the business risks that belong to your business is relevant and how they can help you around those risks, and not if you are, I don't know, in a manufacturing company, you don't really care about, banking risks, right? Because you don't have those tools and don't have those processes. So
context is everything. Understanding what the risk profile for your industry and your business is vitally important to focus on those core risks. Looks like we have some questions in the river, Howard. I'm going to pick on Shane's question because it's really good. Shane,
go ahead.
Yeah.
1 second. I was actually right. Does you mean the simplif? I'm just trying to find it.
So the cloud is just other people's computers. True. Still subject to all the same issues. True. Just costs more in the long run. Not sure about that. We can talk about that. I think if as more organizations are making that choice to move to the cloud, they must be going through their financial understanding of that, but that's fine. We can have a conversation about that. Then Shane says it does simplify some things, but you're moving into a different threat vector to a new location, which is absolutely key. Anytime you make a change to your environment, you are changing your risk profile, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a less good way. The challenge with moving to the cloud is some things look and feel very familiar, but they actually operate in different ways. And you have to be able to understand that. So it goes back to our scaling conversation before. And to be honest, Microsoft is not necessarily helping in this situation. We do things like create a whole new identity management platform in the cloud and call it Azure Active Directory. And it's nothing like Active Directory on-prem. It's a different thing altogether. We use different protocols for authentication, which your analysts need to learn and understand. Authentication in the cloud looks very different from authentication on-prem. And it's down to Microsoft and our partners to help skill you to understand what's changing in your threat profile. So I agree with Shane, it's a different set of threats, different understanding of your threat profile. And if you're thinking that way, you're off to a really good start because that's very, very important.
Cool. So I wanted to ask you, Ken, a little bit about more about the Microsoft security stack. We kind of touched upon it a few minutes ago about, there are people who are, enterprises that are running that, that stack, but actually are more interested in, the remediation and the operations rather than worrying about, log collection and correlation. So, how do they kind of, in your mind, shift focus without compromising on some of the fundamentals?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Not everyone has the ability to stand up a complete end-to-end threat detection and protection team and do all of the log work, as well as all of the threat hunting work, as well as all of the remediation work. So there's two things that probably play into that conversation there. We, as Microsoft, are doing our best to build a lot of automation into our platform, everything from the E5 tools and services up through Defender for Cloud into Sentinel. Orchestration and automation is a key part of what we're trying to do here. Mostly because we're trying to reduce the false positive load on analysts. So things that we can understand that are happening in that entire stack, using the intelligence we have in the cloud to say, yeah, this looks like a real threat or not. That's where a lot of our investment is going these days, to try and make that that world easier. The other thing to think about is if you're an organization and you are moving to the cloud or thinking about how to optimize your position in the cloud, you really want to focus on what is important to you. So that may be threat hunting. You may be really concerned about sophisticated attackers inside your environment. It may be responding to ransomware attacks. It may be focusing on digging through logs and looking for past patterns to predict what's happening in the future. Or maybe only one of those things. And again, that's where partners come in. A really important place that we see customers using partners all the time is identifying which value they can get from a partner and outsource that or offload that work to a partner. And it's going to be really focused on the core competence that the organization has.
Okay. Saggie, any thoughts on that side?
I totally agree with Ken. I think that the focus today, and I think that Microsoft doing amazing work about it, is those automation and the UEBA and things like that, and big data. I think that this is the key, because as we said multiple times during this conversation, the threats are increasing, and as Ken said, finding more people is hard. So we do need to invest and focus on those automation and those things in order to help the analysts to really focus on what is important.
Yeah, and then thinking about Sentinel in particular, we've tried to make that relatively easy for our customers to get started on. So one of the decisions we made back in the early days of Microsoft Sentinel was if you were using our E5 tooling, the alerts that are generated from those E5 tools, you can just plug those into Sentinel. There's a bunch of built-in connectors. It doesn't really take any configuration work at all, and you can get almost an instant visibility into what's happening in your Microsoft E5 world. And it's a really low-cost way of doing it as well, because we're trying to encourage people to understand what's going on in that space. So yeah, if you're thinking about starting your Sentinel journey, it's not a throw everything away and start again with Sentinel. It's no, we can give you intelligence alongside what you're already using just by plugging these connectors in and see what's going on.
Yeah, I think that you brought a very good point, Ken, regarding the native connectors in Sentinel. So it does give you really, really fast. In a matter of a few minutes, you can start ingesting and see logs around Azure AD, the Azure activity, your entire E5 stack, or even if you don't have E5 and you have other license, you can still get a lot of logs regarding the Office and see those things. So I think this is where the true value of Sentinel, this ease and speed that you can start running, see the data, see the things, and I think that what Microsoft did with around the community is also very good, right? So we have a great community, and we have a lot of content that has been developed by the community or by Microsoft. So you can really, hit the ground really, really fast. And a lot of the logs are free because you're already paying them, whether it's Azure AD or your Office and things like that. So it's even not adding a lot of cost.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. One thing I talk about with customers all the time is when they're thinking about moving to a cloud SIEM, either in a side-by-side environment or maybe migrating to a cloud SIEM, thinking about logs is vitally important. It's not the most interesting part of the conversation at all, but it's very important for the amount of time and resource and money you're going to spend. I've seen some customers look at their on-prem SIEM and say, oh, we have all these log feeds. Let's plug the same things into the cloud SIEM. And holy cow, that costs a lot of money. Don't do that. So that there's a lot of guidance out there from the Microsoft world and from our partners on how to think about prioritizing your logs in the cloud space. And it's a really good time to think about what you really care about. Why are you bringing these particular logs in? Have you looked at this log for 90 days or 180 days or ever? And if so, how did it help your business? So yeah, logging it's a big old conversation. Not the sexiest one, but it's important.
Yeah, this is why we always said in the User Factory that we don't ingest log to ingest. So if we're going to ingest log, we are ingesting because we have a business risk behind it, and we have the use cases that we're going to deploy on top of it. If you are going, I don't know, if you need it for regulation or compliance, we have other way. With, for example, Azure Data Explorer, which use the same engine as log analytics and the same SQL query. So we build an amazing solution to able to ingest inside to Azure Data Explorer from any other log source. So you do you can keep your data, but if you need it for security, this is where you ingest to Sentinel. And as you said, and I think that what Shane said, and you talk about regarding it costs more in the long run. So I think that one of the challenges in the cloud is to understand the consumption model, right? So you really understand if you pay per ingestion, you pay per I don't know, infrastructure, you pay per I don't know, transaction. So when you really understand those things, this is where you can really optimize your cost. And as we said, take the logs that you need for detection, put it inside Sentinel. But we are in the era of data, so we want a lot of data. So put the data that you don't use for detection inside Azure Data Explorer. Yeah. And this is, for example, a way that we are doing in order to reduce a lot the cost of Sentinel, but still, get all the features and get everything that we need. So this is why it's very important what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do see customers, using Sentinel as their threat hunting platform, and then doing the ingestion work during that 90-day period where they have essentially free storage, those log alerts, and then pushing them into Data Explorer or off into blob storage somewhere for archiving purposes. Go back to the costing. That's always been a philosophical debate, but the thing that I always find interesting is truly understanding the cost of an on-prem solution can be quite challenging. There are a whole bunch of things you have to think about down there. In the cloud, we bill you for everything you use. It's really obvious. You got a monthly bill that says this is all the stuff you're using, and that can be a bit of an eye opener. Thinking, that's how much of this am I using in a deliberate manner? How can I think about optimizing that? Whereas the on-prem, you don't necessarily have that one bill per month in your face that says this is what it's costing. So different conversation.
So the first question that I ask is how much man hour you spend around maintaining your infrastructure. With no connection to the platform, the application that run on top of it, but how many man hour, and not a lot of them have answer. And this is, for example, a big question mark regarding the cost that you're paying on the on-prem. It's not just license.
Yeah, although I will say a big driving factor in moving to the cloud in the early days was this perception that you could save a ton of money by putting everything in the cloud instead, and that's not necessarily the case. A lot of it depends on how you're thinking about your deployment, the value you get from having the integration in the cloud, and can you apply a monetary value to that? Because it does change the balance of the equation.
Right. So I wanted to shift a little bit, and this is a topic I'd like, Saggie, maybe you could give some insight, and that is around multi-cloud environments. What are the key priorities? There are people who we've been speaking a lot about implementing Microsoft Security, Sentinel, and the other Defender, other Microsoft tools, but also what about third-party cloud providers? What's your perspective on this topic currently as you see it in the market?
Yeah, so I think that we cannot run away from it. Big enterprise using multi-cloud, right? Because each cloud provider has its benefits and its strengths and weakness, and enterprise want to leverage them. And I think it's easy, as it's easy to go and start with any cloud provider. So it's always a challenge. And I think that from one side, Microsoft is starting to give a lot of tools in order to collect the data from other cloud providers, but even without it. So what we did is first we are mapping the risk, and we are mapping the business risk and the challenges that we have with each cloud provider, because each cloud provider probably has a different use in the organization. Some will use, I don't know, AWS for IaaS, but we'll use Azure for the Office 365, the Azure AD and identity and everything. So first, it's really important to understand what is each cloud provider uses are. Then, if we're able to collect the data with Microsoft, whether it's the Azure Arc, the Defender for Cloud, if it's a different endpoint, like Ken said, Mac, Linux, Windows, so we can use the Defender for endpoint, and we have the MCAS also. And we also in CyberProof develop what we call CyberProof flow collection. So this is a platform that's able to collect data from anywhere and put it anywhere. So we can really have the flexibility to collect data from any cloud provider, and understanding the logs and things that we need to gather. We are able to manipulate it in collection time. So one of the things that we want to really ensure and control is the cost. So we are getting lots of data, but we want to aggregate, we want to understand what is valuable before we ingest the data. Because if we ingest the data, we are paying for that. So we don't want to do it. So our platform know how to filter the data, know how to enrich the data, how to aggregate, how to tag it, and then put it inside either ATX or Sentinel, depending on what the use of the data. And by that, with the CDC that we spoke before, and by workbooks inside Azure. Those who don't know what is workbooks, they are like reports, and they can be also interactive reports. So it's really nice for those who don't know, try it out, and build some kind of a unified picture of what's going on in terms of collection, in terms of health of the platforms, and with the detection rules, together with the use case factor and the playbooks that are building detection rules that can correlate between clouds. Because, for example, one quick use case that can be that, a disabled account in AWS, right, trying to log into Azure, for example. So this is where we can correlate the data between them. This is why it's important to get it into one platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I said back at the top of the conversation, this is where Microsoft's going as well. We are, well aware that customers are going to choose multi-cloud solutions. I think pretty much every org for the next 15, 20 years is going to be some form of hybrid deployments. There'll be things that are on-prem and things in the cloud, and those things in the cloud are likely to be spread across multi-clouds, and that's fine. That there's really good business values, business reasons for doing that. So what we're trying to do is help give you the visibility and control you need in that environment. And a lot of the work that Saggie just talked about in things that CyberProof can bring to the table are helping to do that in an even better way. So we have connectors for all the clouds and all the fun things. They're easy to turn on, but you might want to think about, is there some work we should be doing before we turn these things on? And that's where the CyberProof solutions come into play. So with things that you've seen from Microsoft in that space as well, a recent acquisition of ours called CloudKnox. We're building the ability to do essentially permissioning across multiple clouds. So you can have a centralized view on your RBAC controls across Azure and AWS and Google Cloud and so on, and make that visibility easier. You bring it onto one place. And I think across the entire industry, that's where we're going, that consolidation view. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have everything from Microsoft or everything from Amazon, but you'll have a number of different ways of thinking about accessing the same information, either through native controls or through third-party controls and solutions. And that's good, because the closer we get to that simple view, the better it is for everyone, I think. Excuse me.
Interesting, and yeah, I like the insight. We're almost out of time, and I also sense that Ken, we need some liquid refreshments. But maybe in the last few minutes, maybe I could just ask each of you, if you had a I don't know, a limitless credit card, and on that credit card is either money or time or knowledge. What would you invest in for, let's say, the next 5 years? What would be the thing that you would, would be the ultimate thing that you would want to develop to help, protect organizations, people, data, etc. from attack? What would that be? It's Ken. What would it be for you?
So that's a big old question, isn't it? So for me, if I'm thinking about protecting against modern threats, the vector that plays into every one of those attacks we see these days is identity. And if I could spend money, I would spend it on helping our customers understand how to better secure their identity lifecycle management, because we do a really bad job of it in general, and attackers take advantage of that all the time. So that'd be one. If I had one thing only, that'd be it. If I had two, it'd be better cloud configuration management tools.
Okay.
This is Ken. We ask it because we have incubator, so we take your idea and we're going to do big money with it. Okay. Yeah. So to be honest, my motto is automate everything. So I think that if I was able to automate a lot of the things that we're doing in the cloud, or providing like some kind of quick start or predefined configuration for all the resources that we have on the cloud, and having the ability to give a customer, say, I don't know, I want to expose my website, so just click on a button and we'll set up everything. And if you talk about security, so taking the SOAR to the next level and continue, because I really love automation, and I think that this is the future, and I always try to automate everything, so it would be nice to try and automate everything.
I wish I'd got that one here. The true easy button for security. Make it secure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then we would be able to spend our time doing other things.